Welcome back students, this is Vishal Pandey and I welcome you all in my YouTube class. In previous videos we have already discussed, we have already started the French Revolution, and in this chapter we have gone through the French society, that it was divided in 3 states, and we have already discussed what was the role of middle class society in the revolution itself, and how the Louis XVI, how the King of France got an empty treasury. What was the reason behind it? We have already gone through this point as well, and we have already discussed the role of philosophers in the French Revolution. So ultimately these all events have been covered by me, and now we are on the pinnacle. Now we will understand how the revolution broke down in France. What outbreak of French Revolution we are going to discuss in this video today. So be ready for the outbreak of revolution of France itself. Before starting, let me clear this, that when we started this chapter, it was started from 14th of July 1789 itself, but remember this, that we are going in flashback now, और हम पीछे की तरफ से कहानी को समझ रहे हैं, and ultimately when we will come on outbreak of revolution, it means we are very close. We will able to fulfill the date, which is the 14 July 1789. आपने बहुत सारी मूवीज़ देखी होगी, लाइक आई एम गिविंग यू एन एग्जांपल ऑफ चेन्नई एक्सप्रेस. उसमें आपने देखा होगा कि मूवी फाइटिंग करते हुए स्टार्ट होती है और उसके बाद फ्लैशबैक में मूवी जाती है, एंड देन अल्टीमेटली लास्ट में वो वहाँ तक फिर पहुँचती है. सो दिस इज़ द फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन, आप उससे एसोसिएट कर सकते हैं, एंड दिस इज़ व्हाट वी आर हियर टू अंडरस्टैंड. And now we will understand the outbreak of revolution. Before that, I told you that Louis XVI was a king who got an empty treasury because he helped America in the year 1774 and 75 to liberate Americans, and also he was very extravagant. So and he has to pay his army, and he has to maintain his status as a king as well. So he was very spendthrift. He used to spend money a lot. So ultimately when the treasury is empty, from where he will collect the revenue? From the people itself. And as you all have gone through the society of France, that only the third society will pay the tax, or tail and tithe, which was the 2 forms of taxes, and not the first and second state. So it was all the way the tax was paid by the third estate. So for this purpose, king decided to call a general body meeting, and he wanted to introduce a new type of tax, on the new burden on the people of third estate. So the outbreak of the revolution takes place from here only. And now let us understand in detail the topic. I hope you will able to understand. So let us begin. So children, as you can see on the screen, that the heading is the outbreak of the revolution. So Louis XVI was, ultimately he was suffering from the empty treasury. There was no wealth on which he can depend upon. So Louis XVI planned something. What he planned, that if his treasury will remain empty, then how he will able to run his kingdom, and how he will able to run his country. So ultimately he planned that he will impose a new type of tax on the third estate. So a new type of tax he wanted to impose, and to impose a new type of tax, there was a rule in France that the king has to call a meeting of state generals. Now if you have gone through the society of France, that there were 3 states: the aristocrats, the nobles, the clergies, the nobles, and then the peasants, the third state. So generals of each states would be called in this meeting, and there itself king had decided to impose a new tax. Now let me tell you one interesting thing. This event of a new tax introduction, and before that the king who is calling a general state meeting. This was happening in 1789 itself. It was happening in 1789 itself, on the 5th of May. You can see here it has been written that on 5th May 1789, Louis XVI called together an assembly for the states general meeting. So this meeting, which was organizing on 5th of May in 1789, this event was happened in the history earlier, so many years before, in 1614. It means after 1614, this year in 1789, the state general meetings was on the platform by Louis XVI itself. So it means this, if somebody is calling general state meeting, which is what it means, that this country is under alarm now, some problems are there, then only the king is calling the meeting. Let us understand what had happened in the meeting, because after this meeting and whatever has been the incident which will so you have to understand that whatever will happen in the meeting will make a new way for the revolution to come. So Louis XVI called general state meeting, and people used to collect in a resplendent hall. Versailles was prepared to host the delegates. So in the city of Versailles, king called everybody, and every representatives of each states came there. Now let us understand that how many people came from each state. Like look, as we are having 3 states, so from first state, from clergies, there were 300 people, and from second state, from nobles, from aristocrats, there were 300 people, and from third states, which is to be called the peasantry, the third state, from poor, and from that state 600 people were there, but they were not original poor people, they were the prosperous people, which we are calling middle class society. They were the learned people, those who have achieved a good platform from peasantry. They have made a new class, which is to be called middle class. So they came to participate. They were the general who were the representing the poor people. These people, the middle class society, was representing poor people. And later on, so there were 300 from first state, 300 from second state, and 600 people from third state. You should keep this in your mind, that this was the people in numbers. But let me tell you one more thing, that the poor were not allowed to enter in the meeting, but they gave 40,000 letters to middle people, middle class society. These 600 people were the representative of poors. So poor people wrote 40,000 letters, and they handed over to them, to 600 people, so that they could show that letters to the king and to the other representatives as well. Now let us understand that what king suggests, and what whether his tax was introduced, was implemented, was accepted by each state, or it was rejected. We will understand it. So voting in the state general in the past had been conducted according to the principle that each state had one vote. What was the history of meeting, children? What was the history of state general body meeting? That suppose we are having 3 states, 1, 2 and 3. So what it means, that 300 people has to contribute only one vote. It will stand for, the first category will stand for one vote. You can see the first category stand for one vote. Second category will also stand for one vote. And the third category, having 600 people, will also stand for one vote. This was the discrimination which was made by kings and the aristocrats itself. How you could imagine that 300 people having in the first state will had one right, in second condition 300 people again will have one right, and the people who are in 600 in numbers, the just double of first and second stage, will be having only one equal right. So this was the discrimination which made the third state people revolt against this particular meeting. So what they did, they told king that they will not accept this proposal, and to they have to make a change. They requested the king to make a change in this law. They demanded two equal right, because they demanded two equal right. Why? Because they told that they are just double in numbers, so they want two equal right. But king straight away rejected it. So people from the third category, from the third state, they walked out and they leave the meeting without any discussion, and they started revolting against the king itself. They started revolt, they started protest against the king itself. So this was the story, this was the meeting. You could see here on this page, this was the gathering of the people in the Versailles, and then the people, those who were the lower people, those who leave the meeting, the 600 people of third state, they gathered again in a tennis court. This portrait is of the tennis court, children, where the third state people gathered, those who left the meeting from the general state body of the king, and they gathered here and they started making something new for them. They started designing their constitution, and they started designing their an assembly which was called National Assembly, and they swore not to disperse, and they started making their own constitution. Why they got this power from where they got this power, from where they got these ideas? Because if you remember, I have already covered the role of the philosophers, and how the philosophers used to suggest the people, and the people sitting in the saloon, people sitting on the tea shop, they used to listen, read the pamphlets and books of the philosophers. The new ideas generates in their mind. So on the basis of their ideas, people used to decide, the people decided that they will make their own law, they will make their own constitution, because discrimination is taking place, and the first state and second state is straight away discriminating before them, and they are very much lacking behind. So poor people decided to make their own law and own constitution. For that, they gathered straight away on the 20th of June in the tennis court, which was situated in Versailles itself, and they declared themselves a national assembly. And ultimately उन लोगों ने एक national assembly बनाया, और उस national assembly में, because each and everybody was like poor and illiterate, so two people, so as you can understand that both of them would not be, it should be as said as that each and every people was illiterate there. So they need some people, those who can represent them, and those who are literate, those who are educationist. So ultimately they got two persons. The first one was Mirabeau, and the second one was Abatius. Now this Mirabeau was from first state, children. He was a nobleman, he was first state, he was rich, but his ideas were, he had some mercy towards the third state itself. So he decided that he will stand on the behalf of third state, and he will represent the people. And the second one was Abasius. Abasius was a priest. You can see Abasius was Abasius, originally a priest, wrote an influential pamphlet called "What is the Third State?" A pamphlet. So he wrote a pamphlet. Abasius wrote a pamphlet, a third state, which was basically based on the welfare of the people, those who belongs to third state. It means he said in his pamphlet, Abasius said in his pamphlet that third state people are very generous and they are lacking behind because of the discrimination of the king itself. So they both of them, Mirabeau and Abasius, took that advantage and they helped third state to come forward, and now it is very much near because now it is 20th June, and you could understand that on the 14th of July, if you remember, on the 14th of July people came on the road of Paris and they looted each and everything from the fort of Bastille, and revolution took place. So we are very much near now. It is now 14 July will come now. How we will see how the people revolted against the king and what they ended up in. So with this explanation, I wish that you will be able to understand this story and watch the video as many times as you can and make a note, proper note in your notebook itself. And we will see in the next video that how this revolution began and how it ended up, and how king was how king was rejected by the people. So with this I'm going to finish my video, and we will understand in next video that how the people of France reacted against the revolution. Till then, take care. Bye bye.